I believe that life is very magical. There's always something unexplained occurring. But within that unexplained phenomenon which is happening, we have an opportunity to become a part of that. And what I find is that the more I enable myself just to become a part of it, allow myself to be, in a sense, a conduit, then the more opportunity I have to learn about it without pressuring this ideal of what should or shouldn't be, but rather just softening and enjoying the experience as it is. And I believe that this magic pertains to meditation perfectly. Because meditation is a phenomenon in and of itself, unexplained for the most part. Something just simply happens. And through this happening, life becomes more clear, understood, grounded, settled. And as we know, this magic which occurs within the experience of meditation is translated into every other moment that happens throughout the day. The ability to maintain a connection to this constant, which seems to emerge through meditation, enables life to look that much more clear also, and presenting that same magic in different areas of one's experience. So for me, it's about enabling myself to tap into that experience, that frequency, and settle my mind, softening the need for an explanation, the why, or even the how, and allow the why and how to be my maturity, to be anyone's maturity. I think that's what happens. When you focus on a direction long enough, the path reveals to you its meaning. So in a large part, it comes back to doing the right things that are for you rather than for anybody else. And within that, there is a simple form of magic also. An empowerment, confidence, an ability just to rest within oneself and one's own company, not needing anyone to make an experience better. And in that, we are offering something up to the relationships that we have. An ability of independence. And that independence is something which is precious. Within that is a simple, ordinary form of magic. The independence means that there is less of a codependency occurring. I need this from you in order to be happy. You need to do this now in order for me to become relaxed. So what begins to emerge in between you and that other person is a space. That space which is cultivated is one that is duly respected over time. And that respect which emerges within the space has an origin. And the origin of that respect within the space is found within an individual. So the cultivation of that quality of space is found on the inside, expressed out, met, shared, and then experienced once again as an individual. So this falls in line to the ancient practices and wisdom of yoga, but also other traditions, where it is a cultivation of the self for the self. And in the developing of the self, then all prosper, all is balanced. And I'm very fascinated to that why. And the reason for that is because I feel that this is a future movement. It's happening. People are beginning to understand that the individual and the participation that that individual has within any experience which is engaged with is the most important part. So therefore, I reduce my workload in terms of cultivating a life which is conducive by a huge amount, because I am not needing to be concerned with anybody else. Even sitting in this room, I actually do not need to be concerned with any of you, even your meditation practices. Because what has been developed over the thousands of years is technique. Technique that can be taken and then applied as an individual for an individual, then to yield a very specific experience. And that specific experience goes in two directions. One is inwardly, that only that one individual could ever cultivate an experience like that. Two is outwardly, because that individual experience and expression is always met by the collective. This is who we are, and this is how we are as a human species. We are individuals living collectively. We are collective, but yet living individual lives, individual experiences. And for me, this is a profound realization that keeps growing in its magnitude or in its momentum, traveling around the world slowly but surely, empowering individuals rather than groups of people. I believe strongly in the strength of one person. I believe strongly that this is potentially the only way that we as a collective could ever heal fully, to the point where there's no longer any tragedy or trauma. Of course, that's an ideal, but ideals are important so that we point our direction and then we can work towards it. That same form of ideal, living without trauma or tragedy, is the same expression of two directions. As we experience as a collective, we're also experiencing as an individual. So we then must set a clear sight on a destination of where you're going, what you feel is the true direction for you. And then using techniques such as meditation to take your individual there. Simple, ordinary magic that one then applies to themselves. Not for notoriety, but for the simple beauty of experiencing it. Not to say that you've done it, but to be a part of the intelligence which exists on this planet. And an intelligence which is a part of nature. Now that it's warm out, taking the opportunity to sit outside in meditation and see what happens when your cushion is the earth. When your breath is connected to the subtle breeze that moves by you. When the sky is the dome that you sit under. The orchestration of our nature and reality is so incredibly profound, and within its profound expression, it is still a mystery. And within that mystery, there's depth, incredible amounts of depth to discover. Not by categorizing and labeling, but by purely developing a relationship to that which is your nature. And this extends beyond outside, because whether you're inside or outside, you're still enveloped within nature. As long as you still have space around you and the oxygen to breathe, you are enmeshed within its matrix. Profound. So it leads an individual to really searching, questioning as to why one's mind would even be troubled to begin with, if we are a part of nature and nature is so intelligent and there is an exact rhythm that exists within it all. And there's many plausible answers, potentially all of them valid. But the answer to why, to me, is less important than the healing of, the moving through. Enabling one to see the magic that exists within one's own ability to heal, to soften trauma, to let go of that which is no longer needed. The how is to take time each day, 1, 2, 3 minutes, and feel from the inside this healing warmth, recognizing the healing warmth as prana, as energy, life force, which makes everything and anything alive. The purity of that, the innocence of that, the healing potency of that, we want then to direct inwardly to that targeted area which you see and feel as being trauma, sadness, frustration, anger, doubt, fear, whatever it may be that you know is your work in progress, that you know that you're not that, you even don't even need that, but we don't quite know how to let that go yet. Applying directly a warmth that you feel on the inside towards that experience. And then trust. And allow the intelligence, not your intellect, not your brain saying what to do, but the intelligence to do what it does best. The intelligence which operates our reality is beyond the human understanding. I don't mind to keep it that way and simply apply the nutrients where it's needed. Connecting that warmth to the rhythms of your breathing while you're sitting in that small meditation. And recognize that you already know how to direct the breath through your nervous system to different areas of the body, different areas of the mind, different areas of feeling within your emotional experience and body. Using your hands if you want to, placing your hands on your body or placing your hands just outside. And allowing the good work to be done to you, for you. Using yourself as the instrument and the tool, the conduit for an intelligence that allows all of this to be real. Quite potentially, the intelligence that serves our nature is the same intelligence that we ask questions to within the mind. So within that potential, the intelligence could be instructing us on an incredible level how to evolve. And quite potentially, this intelligence is just waiting for us to heal these smaller, needy aspects. And not needy in a negative, but the smaller, needing aspects of who we are. We drag them along. Quickly, hurry up, I have to go do this. Oh, why are you telling me that? No. Where potentially we can shift the conversation to, hi, how are you? Haven't seen you in a while. You okay? Why don't you sit down? Here, let me make you warm. You look a bit cold. You look like you're shaking in your own boots. Let's soften this conversation. Why do I say that? Because often it is yourself that you're speaking to, an aspect of who you are in relation to your own mind, your own body, your own emotion. The more positively we can connect and relate to ourselves in that way, the richer the experience of life will be. Not in a grandiose, but in a very small, personal experience for oneself, not for anybody else. But what then happens is you become this shining example of how this universe, our consciousness, and this nature that we live with and in serves you. And in turn, you serve that nature, that universe, and that consciousness. It's not give-take, per se. It's shared experience. We share space with this phenomenon that we know nothing of. And to me, that's incredibly profound. What the ancients have found, have realized, have understood, and developed is that a technique like meditation invokes higher levels of communication with this intelligence. It just simply is that. We can hear it all day long. We can understand it intellectually until we fill books and volumes of books on the information. But there's only one way to truly know if these ancients are speaking truth, and that's to go through the process. Become it. Be that yourself. And this does not need to take a long time. The concept of samadhi or absorption can happen very quickly, depending on the level and rate of intensity that you practice with. This intensity that I'm speaking of is not something that scrunches the face or furrows the brow. It's an intensity which softens, but within the softening there's an absolute direction and a very clear boundary between what is yes, good for me as the individual, and no, what is not good for me as the individual. And the intensity is the ability to listen to that and then follow the instruction. Simply, kindly, sweetly canceling out all distraction from your meditative experience, so that all you are left with is you and that intelligence which is existing within the space. That dynamism which exists there is creation. Matter is created from that nothing. So to analyze it, to become the student of that, is actually the studentship that the ancients have been talking about for thousands of years. And the external teacher's function is only to guide that individual towards the ability to connect to that teacher within. The teacher within is the same as the teacher that exists through all of nature, universe, and consciousness itself. This could sound very romantic, and it can also sound incredibly practical, depending on what you like. I'm a bit more on the romance side. I love the beauty of all things. But within that beauty there is a practicality. And within that practicality is also beauty. The simplicity of the way things are. With the concept of oneness, all is one means that it shares space. Shares space and time. All happens at this exact moment. Imagine, all of this planet, however many billions of people exist here, is happening now. 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 Profound, now. And we all have very similar makeups. We're human beings. Nervous systems, neurons are firing, connections are created. But you are having an individual experience of this now, 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 now. It's beautiful. I guess the next good question would be, well, why do you do that? And that's not a question that I need an answer to from you, but it's a good contemplation to develop within yourself. Why do you actually sit in meditation? Not only why do you sit in meditation, but why do you do anything that you do? Based upon nature and its intelligence, there must be a reason why. Again, not to intellectually thirst for the answer, but to simply soften and begin to recognize that there is reason behind anything and everything which occurs, even the most random. But not for the sake of our pure understanding of why at that moment in time, but rather a larger arcing reason that transcends the period of time that we're here. We're here for a very brief period of time. So, to know all things is possible, but lofty, and maybe even not necessary. So to take the position of observing and recognizing that one is incredibly intentional, if you feel that you are, and that nothing is really ever done for no reason. And it would be incredibly challenging to argue otherwise, because you constantly are the one who is making the decision to do what you do. So there must be a reason why. Profound. Getting out of this well of positive, negative, good, bad, and just start to see that you decide to do that. And there's a magic involved, one that one cannot explain, one that is connected, one that is a part of a communication which is surpassing this span of experience that you have. One leads to the next. Quite possibly, we are here for the sake of evolution. Yes, personally, while we are here, but we expand that personal evolution to our fellow human beings. So from one generation to the next, altering very sophisticatedly the gene pool, providing a path which is taken for the human species, rather than just the individual. But as we determine, the human species is made up of individual experiences. So you are actually tasked with the work now, at this moment in time. Quite potentially, there's no such thing as a mistake. How could there be? When you start to look at what's going on in genetics at this time, there's some theories out there that put forward that in the deep workings of the human experience, where the simply genes are turning on and off, we're making decisions based upon the entire human species, whether we're going to thrive forward and move fast, or if we're going to be the one just that sacrifices oneself, which sounds harsh in the moment in time, but there is a beauty within that. and to find the ease within one's life through that. This rush towards some end-all be-all can be softened to recognize that you are this end-all be-all. It starts and ends with you. And the quality of life that you then develop here and now is actually the most precious, the most valuable, and will actually give back to the community, to the human species at large, the most effective. Taking that into consideration, we start to see that there's actually an increased value in life if we start to look at it this way. That there is a finite quality to your time here. So then how does one want to spend their time? Recognizing that most of the time spent here is not invested and engaged within nature, but it's inside one's own mind. So then how does then one relate to this mind in such a way to cultivate the experience that then will be the most conducive for pleasure? To be pleased by the simple mundane. And this is what, again, the ancients put forth as a tool to deepening and developing one's relationship and understanding to this intelligence. The most mundane, which invokes boredom, which invokes anger, which invokes frustration, we then apply consciously. Sweeping a floor, washing dishes, mowing the lawn. All of that of the most mundane activity to then be applied to one's own mind and one's own psyche for the sake of allowing an avenue for this mind to clear itself out. Now realize that there's an incredible mechanism found within the human experience that, let's call it the twitch. And this twitch occurs when we deny either a thought, an emotion, or the physical body that which it wishes to do. When we just simply say no, and then hold our position, our boundary, then that mental experience that wished to be expressed has nowhere to go but where it is. And it wants to move, so then it creates a twitch. But that twitch is only found within itself, and what it's doing is actually exhausting its ability to keep fighting and moving and invoking a relaxation so that it softens and becomes a part of the collective experience again. So it's no longer that which you see and say this is something, it actually dissolves and becomes reabsorbed within your energy base that you feel from the body, within your mental space, within the experience that you're having. So that's found within the body, that's found within the mind, which includes your emotions, and it's found within your spiritual path. That denying in the technical form is called tapas. Tapas is the ability or willingness just to go through a slight discomfort for the sake of your own personal growth and development. It's a profound magic. It's very simple. You just have to decide and stay. And then all of the rest is then up to nature. And what we must then recognize is the quality of space that we're in as it's occurring. This, in effect, leaves the body shiny and bright, the mind calm and relaxed. So I say this not to send you home and put you into a wheel of drudging up old stuff and traumas, challenges. I say this because of the reality that time is nonlinear, this whole space-time concept, and that everything can happen so incredibly quickly without any pain when it's already happened. Why I say that is because the experience has already occurred. So that then what you are experiencing again within your meditation or within your quiet time at home or when you're at a walk or at work is nothing more than a memory, which is a ghost in space. It's benign until we attach meaning. Once we attach meaning, then it becomes something. We're consciously deciding to invoke the experience. We're deciding to make it all happen. So this could be the first application of the boundary to those memories that are just no longer needed. They do not serve you any longer, whether it be within the time of meditation or in your day-to-day. And that alone simply will influence life and meditation in a positive. But like always, we can't take one person's word for it. We have to do it ourselves. But in order to fully realize whether or not I'm telling you the truth, you have to apply the technique wholeheartedly, truly, not halfway or even 3/4, but the whole thing. And be sweet and kind as you do it with yourself. Any questions?
I really am fascinated by that quiet you speak of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's kind of weird because the mind, it loves to control things. And it likes, like my mind right now is trying to figure this out and trying to control it and trying to put words in place of something that Paul and I and some other friends came to the conclusion that you can't even use words to describe that which is infinite.
Mm-hmm.
So the mind has its limits.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is why you always refer to go to this quiet space. And there you witness what is true.
Mm-hmm. The mind is really fascinating.
It's a very important tool.
Mm-hmm. And the mind only has limitation because we have decided that this is the limitation of the mind, not even as an individual, even though the individual is, but it also the collective, and that's what's incredible. That's why it's an emerging science, this whole self thing. The mind, we really don't fully know the capacity yet. So it's just a brief interlude or a moment in time that we're just right here. And that the mind surfaces and plays out this way that we all feel as individuals, but it's also happening as a collective. Mm-hmm. But that will then shift. It will grow inevitably.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I really love about this sattva that you brought to this town called Edmonton and this ashram you developed, I really love the fact that somehow, I don't know how this works, but when we sit in meditation and when we do our yoga, we're actually really doing some really good work for the whole city.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand it.
Well, it's because of the power of the individual. And this whole city is made up of individuals.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But we're not at the Oilers game going, rah, rah, Oilers.
Sometimes.
You do that, eh? All right, but we're sitting here, well, okay, you'll have to take me one time. I wouldn't go to anywhere else. But what I don't understand is, by sitting in meditation, in that quietness, I'm actually supporting good work for others.
Most definitely you are. Because this is how the collective works. So as individuals, we're seeking like-minded experience, but not necessarily as connection to other people, but seeking experience.
With the intelligence.
With the intelligence.
Right.
Mm-hmm. So then when this like mind comes into fruition and then it starts to connect, it then creates strength and momentum.
Right.
And then there's a tipping point, and once that tipping point hits, then the true collective then experiences it. So the whole city then turns over and experiences it. Nobody even knows why or how. And it's not necessarily just a yoga influence, but it's so many influences that are adding to that one very specific sensation, that specific mindset.
Okay, now the question,
Mm-hmm.
because this is all about the question.
Yes.
The question is simply this.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between judgment and discernment?
That's a good question. In simple terms, discernment is generally soft. It can be strong, but it's soft. And discernment, in its strength, is kind. Simply, no, I'm not doing that, or no, that person is not telling me the truth. Where judgment is often taking a activity of another and then saying it's wrong. And this is why it's wrong, because those people do it like that, but they're supposed to be doing it like this, like me or like that person over there. So discernment is one that is applied to oneself in relation to what is good for that individual, where judgment is a pointing out and saying they're not good enough or they should be better.
So the beauty of meditation, I notice, is that it has reduced my judgmental side.
Mm-hmm.
Like, by
Drastically.
practicing, I don't seem, except I'm judging myself right now, but set that aside for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
I could be using my discernment here too.
You are in process here. Mm-hmm.
Well, Rameen, I really think this is amazing, and your kung fu is very strong.
Why, thank you.
It's very, very good.
Uh-huh.
I'm really interested to see what's going to happen as this non-linear time unfolds itself.
Mm-hmm, me too.
In the instant.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I look forward to that.
Thank you, me too.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
Can I ask you you don't have to answer this, it's kind of a personal question.
Sure.
Why do you offer the satsang on Wednesdays?
Because I like it.
Okay.
Mhm.
Good answer. That's beautiful.
I could expand a little bit on that. I like it, period. Also, I believe that meditation is such a valuable thing. It's just so incredibly valuable, and it just helps. So why not? Why not meditate? And I feel that this is a way that I can access people and show them, talk to them how.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mm-hmm. Good question. Any other questions about anything?
Hello.
Hi.
The Twitch.
Yes.
Yes.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Do you have any strategies to let the twitch soften other than meditation, breath, yoga? Those are probably the best strategies, but...
Yeah, well, it extends meditation, breath, yoga, extends to body and mind. And in gaining the ability just to relax and soften into the experience that you're having. So recognizing that something is uncomfortable for a moment, but just sticking with it because you are enveloping it within comfort. So you're taking that warm healing that I was talking about earlier that you can apply to yourself and applying it again to this instant, where you are just wrapping that which needs attention, that which feels it's doing the right thing to serve, but it just needs to be rerouted, giving it the room that it needs in order to work itself out. And that comes from the body. And also that comes from habitual activity. So if you have an activity that you know will serve you well within this instance, then apply that. Because of the patterning of our human experience, we love routine. If we take one step and we know that we're going to feel that way, then we'll take another step and then another step.
Because I find that sometimes it's hard to stop, like seeing the twitch and like feeling into the twitch, and sometimes you don't even realize that it is a twitch.
This is now cultivating one's awareness, so self-awareness, becoming very present and relying on one's nervous system to do that, to becoming very present of this physical body, and know that this physical body has a blueprint of energetic, a blueprint of mind, but it follows the exact same nervous system. We feel all of it through that and become reliant on it, so that then when an experience is occurring, you're so aware of yourself and your body that there's no way that it can get past you. There's no blind spots. So we just keep cultivating the opening of the awareness so that we can see. And that's that concept of the seer that the ancients came to. So that's a literal, that one who can see.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Any final questions? Okay, let's sit. With meditation, we are applying a constant stream of awareness coming from this position of the observer. And it's void. It's void of language. It's void of intention. It's just pure awareness coming out. Let's see if we can begin to recognize that simple phenomenon, that magic, and rest into it in such a way that we allow our mind to adjust around that simple fact. Meaning less identification to mind and thought, and an increased identification to the observer who is doing the looking, that the thought, the idea, and the language comes to express. That pure awareness which is pouring out of the observer is then filling the space that you see, that you feel, that intelligence. That intelligence thread loops from the observer into the space, from the space to the observer, increasing the ability of this observer to become increasingly more conscious within one's mind. Keeping the eyes closed, let's bring full deep breaths into the body. Keeping the eyes closed, bring your gaze into the space just there in front of you. And here we're giving ourselves an opportunity to strengthen the mind through ceasing the fluctuation, through enabling there to be a quality of space that is not interrupted by thought of any kind. We do that by creating a subtle flex of the mind muscle. Let's apply that now. Keeping the eyes closed, soften the gaze. And very gently, slowly, allow the eyes to open. And just taking a moment, not rushing, gazing at one point or looking around, but just allowing yourself to come back to your meditation with the ability to retain the goodness that you found there. The goodness found within the meditation is not necessarily connected to your thoughts, but it's something that's felt from the body as a sensation, as a relaxation. A state of mind that the thoughts flow in and out of. That's what we want to pay closer attention to, and allow the weight of that positivity to over time influence thought and emotion, over time. And the recognizing of that is actually a softening of the hold on those thoughts. Softening on the hold of how they should or should not be, so they can just simply be free. So if in fact it is time for them to now simply dissolve and go, they have the liberty to do that, because we have successfully stepped out of the way. And we are enforcing that and reinforcing that through positive sensation, through a positive state of mind. Reminding oneself again and again that these thoughts and emotions are benign until given meaning. Thank you very much, everyone. Namaste.